something unusual is happening, and for many people across the UK, tomorrow may not be just another day. A payment figure of £1,781 has quietly appeared in recent DWP alerts, and it's raising important questions for pensioners, disabled claimants, and households who rely on benefit support to stay afloat. Not everyone will receive it, but those who do could see the money arrive sooner than expected. This isn't a headline designed to alarm you, and it isn't guesswork either. It's about understanding who this payment applies to, why this amount is being mentioned, and what the Department for Work and Pensions is actually confirming right now. For some, this figure represents a combination of entitlements. For others, it may relate to specific circumstances or recent changes that haven't been clearly explained yet. And that lack of clarity is exactly why this update matters. Many viewers tell us they worry about missing something important, a payment they were entitled to, a letter that arrived late, or a change that wasn't clearly communicated. When figures like £1,781 start circulating, it's natural to feel hopeful, cautious, or even skeptical. The key is knowing whether this applies to you personally and what steps, if any, you need to take next. That's what today's update is about. Calmly, clearly, and without exaggeration, we'll walk through what this DWP payment alert really means, which groups are being told to check their eligibility, and what to look out for if you're expecting a payment tomorrow. No speculation, no panic, just the facts, explained in plain English. If you find these updates helpful, you might consider subscribing to the channel. It simply means you won't miss future DWP payment alerts or eligibility changes, and you can stay informed without having to search through confusing information elsewhere. So before you check your bank account or dismiss this as not for you, take a moment to listen carefully. Let's go through who this £1,781 payment is linked to, why the timing matters, and how to know whether you're affected as we move into the details now. As we move forward from that opening, it's important to slow everything down and take this one careful step at a time, because when a figure like £1,781 is mentioned alongside the Department for Work and Pensions and a possible payment arriving tomorrow, it naturally creates a mix of hope, uncertainty, and questions. This part of the video is about gently unpacking exactly what that alert means, why this amount is being discussed at all, and how it connects to real people across the UK who rely on pension and disability support to manage everyday life. Nothing here is rushed, and nothing is exaggerated. The aim is to help you feel informed and steady, rather than left guessing. First, let's talk about why £1,781 has appeared in DWP payment alerts and conversations. This is not a random figure, and it is not a one-size-fits-all payment that everyone will suddenly receive. Instead, it reflects a total amount that can apply in very specific situations, usually where certain entitlements line up at the same time. For some pensioners or disabled claimants, this amount may represent a combined payment made up of regular entitlement plus additional sums that are owed, adjusted, or triggered by a recent change in circumstances. That's why some people are being told to check their eligibility carefully, especially if they've had letters, messages, or online account notifications from the DWP in recent days. When people hear that a payment could arrive tomorrow, it's understandable that they immediately think of their bank account and whether they should expect to see a higher balance. For a small but significant number of people, that may indeed be the case. The DWP processes payments in batches, and when adjustments are finalized, those funds can appear with very little notice. This often happens when an assessment has been completed, a correction has been applied, or a decision has been backdated. The key thing to understand is that these payments are not sudden gifts or bonuses. We're usually money that the system has calculated as already belonging to you. Many viewers tell us they worry that if they don't fully understand what's going on, they might miss out or do something wrong. That's a very real concern, especially when the system feels complicated and communication isn't always clear. Imagine a pensioner who has recently had their circumstances reviewed, perhaps due to a change in household situation or a reassessment linked to disability support. They may receive a standard-looking message or letter that doesn't clearly spell out what's happening next. Then, a payment alert mentioning £1,781 appears, and suddenly there's confusion. Is this connected? Is action required? Or is it simply an automatic process already underway? For some people, the answer is that no action is needed at all. The DWP often advises people to check eligibility, not because something has gone wrong, but because eligibility determines whether a payment like this applies in the first place. If your details are already correct and up to date, and a payment has been authorized, it will usually arrive without you needing to chase it. That said, checking your recent correspondence, whether by post or through your online account if you use one, can provide reassurance. It can help confirm whether you're among those for whom this £1,781 figure is relevant. It's also important to acknowledge the emotional side of all this. For many pensioners and disabled claimants, money is not an abstract concept. It's heat, food, transport, and peace of mind. The thought of an extra payment arriving can bring relief, but also worry, especially if you're unsure whether it's real or whether it might later be questioned. The DWP is aware of this, which is why these payments are tied to clear eligibility rules, even if those rules aren't always explained as simply as they should be. You might be wondering why the amount is so specific. £1,781 is not a rounded figure because it reflects precise calculations. These calculations take into account your personal entitlement, any relevant dates, and any adjustments that need to be made. For example, someone who was entitled to a certain rate but received a lower amount for a period of time may be owed the difference. When that difference is added up, it can result in a figure like this. That's why two people in similar situations may still receive different amounts, or none at all, depending on their individual circumstances. Let's consider a real lifestyle example, without getting into anyone's private details. Think of a pensioner who has been receiving support for some time and recently had their entitlement reviewed. Perhaps there was a delay in applying a change, or a reassessment confirmed that a higher level of support should have been paid from an earlier date. Once that decision is finalized, the DWP may issue a backdated payment to cover what should have been paid before. When processed, that payment can arrive suddenly, often accompanied by a brief notification or appearing in the bank account first, with paperwork following later. For that person, seeing £1,781 arrive tomorrow would not be a mistake. It would be the system catching up. For disabled claimants, the situation can be similar. Assessments and reviews can take time, and decisions don't always align neatly with payment schedules. When things are corrected or updated, the payment system adjusts accordingly. Again, the key message here is that this is not about new schemes or new benefits. It's about existing entitlements being applied correctly. That's why it's so important to stay focused on what applies to you personally, rather than assuming the headline applies to everyone. If you're watching this and feeling unsure, one of the most helpful things you can do is take a moment to reflect on any recent changes in your life that you've reported to the DWP. That could include changes in health, household circumstances, or anything that might affect entitlement. If nothing has changed and you haven't received any communication, it may simply mean that this particular alert doesn't apply to you. And that's okay. These updates are about awareness, not pressure. At the same time, if you have received communication and you're waiting on a decision or adjustment, this alert may be especially relevant. The mention of a payment arriving tomorrow suggests that some decisions have already been processed and scheduled. Payments usually land early in the day, often in the early hours of the morning. Many people check their bank account later and are surprised to see a higher balance than expected. If that happens, it's natural to want immediate reassurance. In most cases, if the payment has arrived, it has been authorized properly. One thing that often worries people is whether receiving such a payment could cause problems later, such as being asked to repay it. While no system is perfect, the DWP does not typically issue large payments like this without a clear basis. If the money arrives, it's usually because the entitlement has been confirmed. Keeping any letters or notifications you receive is always sensible, as it provides a record of why the payment was made. Throughout all of this, it's worth remembering that the DWP communicates in a way that can feel distant and formal, especially if you're not used to dealing with official language. That's why updates like this video exist, to translate what's happening into something more human and understandable. When we talk about a £1,781 payment alert, we're really talking about people's lives and their need for clarity and stability. As we continue, we're going to look more closely at how eligibility is checked, what arriving tomorrow really means in practical terms, and how to interpret any messages you may receive. We'll also talk about what not to worry about, because unnecessary anxiety helps no one. The goal is that by the end of this video, you feel calmer, better informed, and clearer about where you stand. So stay with me as we move deeper into the details of who this DWP payment alert applies to, why timing matters so much in these cases, and how to make sense of everything without feeling overwhelmed.